Hi, Mariam. Good to see you. We're finally doing our sit down and have a cup of tea together. We planned to do this for a long time in the garden, in your beautiful community garden. But unfortunately, lockdown number 6 has meant we've had to adapt, and adapting we are. So, hi, I'm Dusty, and this is my friend Mariam. And today we're going to sit and have a compassionate conversation because that is a cornerstone of RAW. RAW is an organization that Mariam founded 13 years ago, and I've been a member actually for 12, but much more so since I've moved back to Australia this past year. Before we start, though, I wanted to thank Dr. Chris Landon for providing this space. He's one of our collaborators, and being that he cares about resilience and global health, we're very good partners. So thank you, Chris, for providing this space for us to have a little sit together and have a cup of tea and talk about things that really matter. So, Mariam, tell me about storytelling.
Thank you, Dusty. First of all, I want to thank you for holding this space for us and to Dr. Chris as well. And I think we're having this conversation at the right time. This is a time that our global world needs the power of storytelling and how we can really connect and seed love with each other and talk about our issues, because there's a lot going on. It is a changing world. And so, I come from an oral culture, a culture that is big in storytelling. Somalia is known as a poetic culture, and in the way it imparts its wisdom and knowledge is through seeding stories. And we are a community that really memorizes, because our language wasn't written until 1972. And so it's just like, the story has been told, and it's the way it continued. And now I find myself as a 53-year-old woman really finding some resource in me that has been seeded when I was really young. And I would question, what does this mean for me now? And it seems that those stories have germinated and they've become the tree, or the seed have become this tree that can now shade humanity. And I use that in my backyard. And it is a way that I eradicate the mindset of poverty, any kind of poverty. And I bring people together and host a relationship or a space where people can really talk about their stories without being judged. And it's what is needed. I think we can do that, and I do believe in that. And raw in its name itself is that it is the raw simplicity of just sitting together, having a cup of tea together and just talking about
a cup of tea, my dear.
Complex issues through a cuppa. So we called it that shah and sheko. Shah is tea and sheko is stories back home. So we are having shah and sheko.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. RAW stands for Resilient Aspiring Women, but it's gone well beyond gender and well beyond age brackets. Some of your storytelling, or the desire for storytelling, is becoming intergenerational and cross-cultural. And as you say, it's a tree, it's seeds that are planted that are growing in the tree. Very appropriate picture of yours in the background. I just think it's gorgeous, this painting. Can you tell me about it?
Well, this is a painting of the people that I live among, the Aboriginal people of Australia. And I was, as a speaker, I was invited for International Women's Day in 2020 before we went on lockdown. And I went to a place called Coves Harbour, and I was really received well. And after my, my talk, I was gifted this beautiful painting. And for me, it symbolizes connection. It symbolizes the power of the feminine, how important it is as women to really step up and to start, these conversations, transformational conversations, conversations of politics, or even, you know, gender, or whatever we are having, or that intersectional conversation. And yeah, as you can see, it's really symbolizes a lot of that, and it gives us that ability and power to reclaim or reimagine in our true essence.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been doing laughter programs with Raw Garden. As I said, these last 12 years, when I would come back to Australia, we'd often host a program together. And these programs, of course, are non-profit, and they're community-based to bring communities together. And I think one of the most memorable was the one we had for new Australians. So these were people mostly from refugee backgrounds, very challenging backgrounds, being granted asylum, and very diverse, and quite a few with partners. And it was beautiful because I think just so many nations and backgrounds and stories of overcoming and newness and new life. And there was also a sense of, how am I going to fit here? And we were able to laugh together and love together. And so much was accomplished that day without words. Just being in this beautiful garden. If people viewing this could see how beautiful your garden is and how wonderfully it's run by community volunteers and how much it gives back, they'd be able to visualize this perhaps easier. But without words, just laughing, loving, connecting, we really found a oneness. Yeah. And to me, that's where conversation starts. It's a return to the oneness that really is us. We lose it along the way, unfortunately, and it's regaining that. And I think this is why recently we've gone into a collaboration with Space to Be, Trinity Church, where we do Laughter on Chapel, and we've done with Landon Pediatric Foundation, a few other organizations, just coming together to talk, to be, to share spaces with the belief that we really can achieve a oneness.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, the reemergence that you talk about, Dusty, is just reminding each other that we've got it. You know, we've got everything we need within us, and that we just need to support each other. You know, sometimes we do use the word help, you know, I want to help you. And in that space, we create helplessness. But in the space of support and in the space of conversations, I think we create a special bond, a connection where we remind, you know, our mentees, you know, in this world, I think we're both mentors and mentees. And some people are in a vulnerable state and they want to transcend and, you know, achieve something in a space that they feel a bit, you know, bondage. And it's what is happening, you know, when you're a refugee. It doesn't mean that, you know, you're starting over. You've started the journey, but, you know, the place that you come to, the host country, is there to host and to support you in, you know, your next phase. So we're always in different destinations, in different, you know, we're in the same path. We're all coming back to the oneness, as you said, the Ubuntu, you know, the Ubuntu cultural space of like that oneness. But it's only what we all need from each other is just that non-judgment and that supportive and collaborative abilities that, you know, we all possess. I think we all have it. You know, for me, I saw my backyard, you know, a big backyard. It's not my home. It is you know, a housing, which is, it belongs to the government. But then I saw the opportunity that I could create something here. I could invite people. And this started with the seed, which my mother used always. She used to tell us stories. Like, she would say, if you can host someone in your home, you can host them. If you can host someone in your heart, you can host them in your home.
Okay.
And
I
that for
like
me
that. I like that a lot.
yes, it translated to me letting go of, the grievances or what has happened in the past, and continue to, just forgive and bring people together and create that space of trust. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And something that resonated a lot, and I feel like I stand corrected, was people coming to new countries, different countries. They're not starting their life over again. They're continuing. They've already started the journey. We are merely hosting. We're creating a space, and conversation is the start, but non-judgmental. Absolute positive regard that you see yourself in that person, the divinity in that person, the potential in that person, the beauty in that person, because it's there. And much like a garden, you may have to cultivate it or dig around or look for it, and we all have seasons in life. I love how you use those metaphors a lot about seasons of life. I think some of our lockdowns have been very wintry for us here in Melbourne. We've had very long lockdowns, and lots of them, more than any other state, and probably more than anywhere in the world, I dare say. Last year I was here for 5 months in winter. We all were.
Yes.
But this is my first winter back in Australia after over 30 years, almost 40. And I was in a small, freezing cold attic, and we were only allowed out 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
And it was awful. But the one thing I had is, in this attic, I could look out into the garden. And I watched the birds as spring started to come, starting to nest, and the green buds come, and then the flowers come, and then the garden filled with trees. And it reminded me, we do go through these sometimes very difficult spaces, and we look like we're being stripped bare and there's not much left. But those safe spaces where we tend to each other, care for each other, spring does come.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one other thing about the raw garden, and you translated what raw means, like, we started with our resilience. We started with resilient, aspiring women. But if you read raw backwards, it's war. So the war that lives in us, the duality, the war of duality, the dance between the essence and the ego, and how, we fight we have grievances in our hearts, but we also have grace in our heart. So how do we, sit with the grievance so that we can turn it into a grace, so that we can learn from the occurrences of that grief. And I think, when you're working in gardens and when you're sitting in garden and in nature, I think it reminds you, the metaphor, the beauty of nature is the remembrance of yourself. Because through that, that wintry, you are sitting and, you are feeling, and even the trees don't have leaves anymore. They just feel like, empty wood,
dead, almost dead, actually. They
almost
dead.
Yeah. So there is a metaphor in my Islamic culture that says, وَيُحْيِي الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا, and it is in the revival of the earth after its death. So it's almost like winter is, that after winter, it's the revival. You come up again. From that day.
That's so true. I think from my traditions, it says, unless a seed falls into the ground and dies, it dies alone.
It dies alone, yeah.
But it has to die in order to bring life and spread. And we do go through hibernations and deaths of sorts well before our actually departure from this plane. But there's so many rebirths and resurrections and growth. And I think that space, that support, that recognition, for me, something that's really important is that recognition of, this is a winter for you. This is not you. You are not determined by this alone. actually
Yeah.
what you do with this determines you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it may be
And I
hard
think
and
that
it may
time,
be tough, right?
yeah, yeah,
But it's not you. And when people can go, that's
yeah.
just her winter, it's not her, I feel very supported. When they manifest faith in me that I will eventually, as long as it takes, get through it and probably be better for it and have a greater understanding. And so that to me is important in conversation, is manifesting that towards other people too. This is
Yes,
but a
yes.
season.
This is but a season. And I think that
Mm.
season is also a season of integration. I think, you've completed a phase, so you have to integrate what you've learned. So that time of, quiet and stillness, which winter brings, is a time of integration. And then when you're finished with that, then that's the time of transformation. You come out transformed. You come out
Yes.
to the next phase of you. And your body, even our body is not the same all the time. We go through those phases. We go from childhood to adolescence to becoming older. But so is also our mind. So it's a time of maturity, and we are maturing. And I think that's where now these conversations are important, because we feel in our duality that this is, we're going through hardships, and we've become so negative in it that it consumes us. This stickiness of our emotions, kind of, if they're not processed well, if that grief is not catalyzed to be a grace, then we can forever be in the stickiness. We can forever be in the winter, and we don't come out of it. And that's where we have to bring people out of the winter, out of depression, because it's not a depression. It's a time where you're integrating. So that's the time that you need other people to pull you out if you stay there longer, because some people stay longer. So
Yes,
that's where
and
we're here for each other.
Absolutely. When I first was sent back to Australia over a year ago, I really went through great anxiety and depression, real anxiety. It was horrendous. It was a really hard time. And it felt like there would be no end to it. But I really had to crawl my way back. And I think what woke me up a lot was how I was affecting my partner and other people. Sometimes for me, one of the greatest motivators is if I know it's important to do things for yourself, but I really get those prompts when I see how I'm affecting other people. And that's why we do need community, and we need feedback, and we need mirrors. And so that kind of prompted me. And once, of course, you start fighting a bit and really, really trying to switch tracks, not denying, but switch tracks and look for the positive, look for the, what can be done. Admitting this is crap, I hate it, I'm going to turn this into something somehow. What is it and how do I do it? And I think that's support too, and all of that. And so now today, coming into these continued lockdowns and then extended continued lockdowns, I don't go back to that place. I'm tempted at times, but I don't, because I also know there's a history of we come out at the other side, and we do have moments of freedom, and there are moments we don't have to wear masks, and there are moments we can get out in community again. And you've really got to grab those moments. If nothing else, this lockdown has taught me to grab those moments, those pockets of peace, to really look for and enjoy. I'm enjoying things that are so simple that I might have taken for granted before. I'm sure you are too. And you were telling me about the lemons. Tell me about the lemons. I just think that's a really, lemons. So what lemons? Everybody has a lemon tree in Australia almost.
So we've got about
lemons.
Lemons. We've got about 3 lemon trees in our backyard. The garden actually has about 40 fruit trees, which is really special for and none of our fruit is sold. All the fruit go to the community. So every morning, we are in the season of lemons now and so I take a bucket of lemon outside and put it outside for people to take it. And by evening, it's gone.
On the street, right at
Right
your
in front
gateway.
of, on our gate. We don't actually have a gate. Our gate is 6 olive trees. You know, there is a verse in the Quran that says the olive tree is a tree of neither the east nor the west. So it's a bridging tree. And we purposefully put those trees to be our fence, because we're bridging cultures, we're bridging, we're bringing people together from different parts of the world to really communicate and connect. So we put those lemons out. And for me, I feel that that is a sense of connection to the community. It is a sense of generosity. It's a sense of, yep, we're here, life is still going on. And the trees are still giving us their fruit. So everything is fine.
Yeah.
All is well.
Yes.
All is well.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. So
it teaches you, right? You always have something to give. You
something
always
to
have
give.
Something
It's
to
part
give.
of seeding that love. Yes, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to end with this last thought. Because you and I can go on for hours.
Oh, we
inspire each other so much. It's great.
Yes.
I just love it when I get a call from you. Because I know, here we go. We're going to have a deep conversation.
We
are so alike in so many ways. And our experience actually in Australia, which is really quite amazing because I've lived overseas for 40 years. And I identify with other cultures so much more than the one I was born with. But our experiences and our way of viewing things, because of that broad, I guess, perspective of all the experiences that we've had and cultures we've lived with, is very similar. But anyway, my last thought is, how can we seed love? Very simply, what's the simplest things? But lemons is a perfect example. Giving of what you have. How do we seed love in COVID times, when we normally would invite people into the garden, when we would normally invite people into our homes? How do we do that?
So I feel that Dusty, seeding first of all has to start with you. How are you using self-love? Are you ready for it? Are you resisting it? Because love is there for us. There's a beautiful quote from Rumi, and he says, do not look for love, because you are love. Just look for the spaces you're withholding it. So it's first of all to look at those spaces that I'm resisting love. Am I giving a smile today? And if I'm not, why not? Am I being kind today? And if I'm not, then why not? Finding that. And I think it's about living in presence. It's about bringing our awareness back, because we are awareness, we are consciousness. And, we can be limited in our personal spaces, but we know there is an impersonal us as well. So once you discover that, then it's very easy to spot the places that need love, the places that in our communities are resisting that love. So when you're having a conversation, for instance, for someone, for me, I have an acronym for love. I love words as a storyteller. And so my acronym for love is to be a deep listener, to start with the letter L and become a deep listener. Someone might be talking about lemons, but they're not actually talking about lemons. They might be, talking about the bitterness of life, So
yes, correct.
Become a listener. And the second one is to observe with no judgment. And we can become observers, when you're walking in nature, just observe, be still, be present, listen to what the birds, the songs, you might even understand the songs of the birds sometimes. You can hear a bird singing, but it might not be a song, it might be a calling. It might be calling its young ones. So when you become that deep listener and an observer, you really know what's going around you. The third one is validate, to be a validator. So what are we validating? Listening to and observing the emotion. The letter E is emotion. because the emotion is what creates our experience. It's
Perfect,
what
yeah.
makes our egoic storytelling, you know?
Mm,
And so once you listen to someone's emotion, you're loving them. If someone comes at you angry and you give them that space of listening, observing with no judgment and validating their anger, you've literally loved that person, because they will go, oh,
yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be angry at you, but I'm angry at this, some other things.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
realize that your love
Yes.
has been, it has been noticed. So that's the way that we can seed love, by just connecting with
Fantastic.
ourselves and bringing our greater awareness. Just like you said, you know, looking at the things that are important for us to do. So when you wake up in the morning, how am I waking up? Am I waking up with anxiety? Am I waking up with anger? So noticing your feelings, because the feelings are the what creates the emotion, and the emotion is what creates the experience. So it's important to have that. And that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Speaking of waking up and speaking of cups of tea,
Yes.
And talking about starting with self-love, I have a practice. I've been doing this recently, and at first it feels a bit strange, but I've really grown into it, and it's been fantastic. Before I fall asleep, I've done this part of the exercise for years. I look for 3 things that I'm thankful for the day. Just as I'm falling asleep, and then I take one of those things and I break it down. So that exercise gives me, it starts to rewire your brain to automatically look through your day for the things that you're thankful for. And then when you break it down, it rewires your brain to find meaning and purpose in things. But the thing I added to my practice is I mindfully send love to myself for the next day, the next morning. And I pick it up with my cup of coffee. Yes. So I always religiously have a cup of coffee in the morning. It's a very sacred thing, my coffee and my time. It's beyond coffee, but it's the coffee time that I have with me and my soul. It's a sacred space. And I just stop with my coffee and I feel this love that I've sent myself. And of course, it's reinforced with a wonderful smell and taste. It's a full sense.
Yep.
And I really have started to go, thank you, darling. Wow. And just loving the love.
Yes.
And it's incredible, because if you can show up for yourself with love, others can too. If you can't, how do you expect anyone to love or care for you?
True.
And you can't give from an empty cupboard. So we have to stock our cupboards to be love. And what I hear and what you're saying is being love, just simply being love. Yes. Okay, I think that's a perfect spot to end our conversation.
To end, today. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yes. Remember, you are loved.
Yes. Amen. I'm into that. Amen. So, and thank you, Mariam, and thank you, Dr. Landon, for giving us this space, and Get Moving TV, and anyone who happens to join us once this goes to air. Mwah. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.